worn rusty wheels and knew I'd take her home. I brought her to my farm in an Amish neighborhood where simple living's valued. She'd be loved and understood. I put her on a treadle stand and coaxed her wheel to turn. I felt her joy and easing with my study and concern. I cleaned her and I oiled her, showed her off to all my friends, repaired the hurts of years and let her sew again.
Hello, welcome back. So I am working on my Rosie the Riveter machine, and at this point her paint is dry, and so I will flip the camera down. I've got her upside down on my table, but it's a weird angle, so I'm still trying to figure out how to get the camera to work here. I might move my camera over to this side. One of the things that I'm dealing with here is that, you know, I did not completely disassemble her before, but I'm getting into where I'm trying to get everything functioning really well. And there is this wick system, the oil system, and the wicks are terrible. You know, I was going to try to maintain them, but everywhere I look, they're just decrepit. And so they do need to be replaced. And so what I have purchased to replace it with is oil wick, okay? But this is oil wick that's made for a lamp, but same thing, it's cotton, it's woven. The texture looks a lot like the texture that I see on the machine, you know? So I'm hoping that it's gonna work. I got this package. This is 3mm, because it comes in all different widths. And this one is 3mm, and to me, that looked close enough to, trying to grab a piece here, the original diameter of wick, that I think that it's going to work. So I've already actually pulled a few pieces off and just grabbed my other camera and took a few quick shots, which I'll show you in just a minute. But it's going to be an experience because I've never done this type of thing before. And take my glasses off because the ring's in the camera there. And so there's a lot of like fishing wick through shafts and everything, and I'll show you this in just a minute. So we're just going to get started. Today I think I am going to focus on the underside of the machine just to get it clean and functioning and everything, you know, polished as much as I can, put together. And since I am pulling it apart, I do have the chance now to go back and, you know, polish all of my points. Look at this massive pivot point, it's huge. And do all of that, so I think that that's really going to help. So let's get started. Okay, I don't have the right camera here right now, but I want to show you what I'm doing. There was a little bracket right here. This was, okay, this is where the wicks are supposed to be attached to, and here is my pack of wicks that I'm going to use. It's 3mm, right there, it's 3mm oil wick, and I think that that's about the right size. And what I wanted to do is I'm going to pull this one off too. This is another bracket with an oil wick on it, okay? So I'm going to take this screw off. I already dropped one in there I need to pull off. I believe what I'm going to need to do is take out this shaft, because what it looks like to me is that, you know, we have the pipe that's going to run up here to spew oil. And then there's going to be this piece, which is going to have wicks on it that the oil can travel down, which joins from that piece to right here. There's going to be a wick that connects there. And to me, because you can kind of see it right there, the wick coming out, which is going to travel up this piece. It looks like there's going to be a wick that's going to be a little longer than this point, coming into here, through this shaft, and then back out that way. So I'm going to actually need to take out this whole shaft here. And looking at it, you know, I can take out this nut here and the pivot screw, and I Got other stuff down here. I'm just going to see what I can do. I've got another nut and pivot screw over here. I've got this one that I can probably release, and it looks like that's a clamped piece that will then come open. So I'm hoping that by the time I remove this, and this, I'll be able to wiggle this free enough, oh, and this piece also, because that's holding it in, that I'll be able to pull this out. So in order to be able to pull this out, because I can't get to this screw in here, you know, I need to be able to pull this whole bracket out. So there's a screw up here that I released a little bit, okay, which allowed this to turn, so this fork can hopefully come free enough that I can wiggle this whole piece out. I don't want to take this pivot screw out right now if I can, just to preserve the position of the whole thing. But it looks like I need to because this is not wanting to get freed. Alright, I want to show you this. This pivot screw is super extra long. It goes all the way through to this point. So it's a lot longer than the standard. The one on the other side that was over here is more of a standard size in my opinion. This one's super duper long. So I'm just backing that out enough. Let me see if I can release. Nope, I gotta loosen up this bolt so that I can slide this entire piece off. Okay, so you have just seen the video clips that I did earlier today on my other camera. So here's this piece. I took it inside and washed it, you know, just in a tub because I did not want to get stuff everywhere, but it was really, really nasty. And so I just wanted to wash it enough that I could see what was going on in here. And so what I'm going to do is I need to clean these pivot points up too while I'm this far into it. But what I'm going to do is just pull one side off so I can release this piece, clean it up really well, put it back on, and then pull this side off, clean these points, and then put them back. And I think by doing it that way, just taking one off at a time, I can maintain the right spacing right here. So I'm going to be doing that off camera. You don't need to watch that. This here is where wicks come out of each side, and it looks like I'm going to need to fish it through here with like a really narrow wire or something, kind of like pulling an elastic through a tiny casing. This is where the oil wick comes out to connect right here to that little T-shaped piece, okay, that goes there. So lots of fidgety cleaning kind of stuff. So let me take care of all of that. And I'm just going to do one component at a time so I don't confuse anything, because there's enough new looking pieces here that it would be easy for me to get pieces misplaced. And actually, you know, complete honesty here, I've already found an extra screw that I did not catalog where it goes, so I have to be looking for that. So let me get this clean, get all of the other pieces that I have pulled off already clean. Okay, new development. When this popped out, this is what it released. This is what it revealed, I should say. This is a wick that just goes around like that. And just the little butt end of this wick was popped into that hole. It was not fished all the way, okay? And when I pulled the little nubs of wicking out here, I don't think that this was going in all the way too. And I want to show you another new development. You know, this is like learning as we go. I cleaned out the wick in this hole where, you know, it comes out to that middle area and up here. And what I'm seeing is that there is a very narrow opening that actually connects these two holes, but it is not big enough for a wick to travel through. And when I pulled the wicking material that was in here and that was in here out, I can't find that there's actually any inside of that pipe. So this is my thought right now. There's wick in here that connects to the central area where the oil comes from to get it to this point. And then just the pressure from the impeller here, you know, forcing it through the system is going to keep oil in here enough that then the little wicking material that was pushed in here can make contact with this piece so that there's not a whole lot of oil going, but it's just constantly moist. That's what I'm thinking. That is what is making sense at this point. So yeah, that's just, my latest revelation here. Okay, so with that done, I am pulling off this pivot point over here. I clean that and its little screw first. So this comes off. I'm going to leave this bar the way it is. This comes off so it's, upside down like this. So when I go to put it back on, I'm going to put it back the exact same way. I'm going to leave that there for right now. Get these cleaned and polished off. I've run a wire wheel and I'm going to run a polisher point inside of there. And then we'll put all of this back together again. I want to show you this nut that I pulled off from this point. Look at it. It's not symmetrical. It looks almost like a handmade nut, I mean, I've seen a lot of screws that are not centered, but I haven't seen a lot of nuts that are not centered. And, it's not like a uniform angle there. It's really interesting. But anyway, just wanted to show you that. I'm going to go ahead and clean up this piece now. Again, it goes upside down, but I've got to clean out inside here where these little pivot points go to. I wanted to show you, I got that clean. I put back on. This piece I have pulled off. This is the bracket that connects it up here. I'm going to clean it off, but when you pull it off, if this is laying this way so that the shiny side of this bracket is down and the fork is out, see those are a lot cleaner in there now. This is the position that this part goes in. So the little opening over here is like this. The screw head goes from the top, it sits on like that, and it pushes all the way down to the bottom of this shaft. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this little shaft here, clean all around here, and then pop it back on. And I do have a screw that goes in there to tighten it back up again. All right, so I got a piece of my little wick about this size. I've already got it in there. And what I've decided I'm going to do is kind of like preload it. So drench my little wicks in oil first, so that they already have a head start. And then for this one, I just took a piece, a little more than 1/2 inch, folded it in half, pushed it in there, and then just with, these are pretty gingered up. I need to straighten them out. But I was able to just kind of, with the tip of this, put it down so it's nice and flat so it looked like it did before, okay? So let me just stick that piece aside. What I need to do now is clean up this piece, and this wick here is the next one that I'm going to replace, but I need to pull it out. But I'm just going to note right now that when this little loop is laying down flat, that little loop is sticking out probably about 1/8 of an inch from this edge. Okay, looks like a little airplane. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Again, I'm just going to throw some oil on it right now so it can be soaking in. Hammering these things open, I had to use a punch like that to hammer them open because that's steel. It's not like an easy bending aluminum piece or tin or something. It is steel. So, but that's how I am doing it once I have this oiled. And these ends are much too long, but I wanted to make them too long now so that when I get them into place, I can cut them to the right size. Okay. I am putting the pivot screw back in over here. I haven't put the nut back on. You can see I've polished this up and I'm putting it back just so that I can make sure that all of this over here is going back where it needs to be. And so once I get this big old screw screwed in, there is a nut that goes on the side over here, a smaller nut, and I want to make sure that I get this in securely, but not so tight that it's going to bind. Okay, so these two little ends here are supposed to be providing oil to the pivot points of this little part inside there, okay? So when I want to see how far I need to cut it, Just going to slip that in. Oh, I don't need to get that in perfectly right now. And I can see that I just need maybe 1/8 of an inch or so of this sticking out beyond the clamp. And that's going to allow the ends of this wick to brush up against the inside of these pivot points right here and keep them nicely lubricated. So let me again stick the little butt end, folded end of this down in here. Push it down and get this screwed back in. All right, at this point I do not have this pivot screw put back in. I will very loosely, but I have a feeling I'm going to need to take it out when I have to pull this side out. So I'm not too worried about that. But what I want to do right now is get this piece put back on. And so I've cut 2 pieces of my newer wick, much longer than I know that I need. And I have them clamped in there. Okay, this piece is now clean. And I am just going to place it here, okay, because the oil, I'm guessing, see this little thing that's spinning and it looks like it has a hole in it. I am thinking that when the oil is pumped in here, it kind of spits out here, okay, which would then saturate these pieces. And when these pieces are wet, and when I took it off, they were 2 separate pieces there, but I'm thinking that that's what feeds this whole deal. So let me find my little screw here, put this back in, and I am going to feed the other ends of this wick into, you know, the little right part of the shaft after I get all of this done, you know, just in case I need to pull it out. That way I'm not going to be going back and forth, you know, putting in new wick because I trimmed it too short initially or something like that. Okay. So at this point, here's what I've got in my little container. I have to clean up these 2 nuts. This nut goes over here on the other end of this pivot point over here, shorter one here, and then I'm going to walk away and call this good. I've got stuff to do in the house, and I think that this is a good stopping point where I won't lose track of anything. So next time I'll work on the other side. Hello, so I popped back into my little room up here for a minute, and I wanted to show you, I went ahead and put this back on. So underneath here, you know, I cleaned out that whole area. This is the viewing port, so you can see when oil drips. My machine is upside down right now. That's why it looks this way. But what I did is there's a little cork gasket. I got a new gasket, put that down, then put the new little clear plastic on top of that. It's just a plastic circle. And then my newly painted frame around that and screwed it back in. I wanted to also show you, I have my white spools of thread, so I'm going to go ahead and put those up here right now so I don't lose this piece of paper. Okay, so I left it slightly uneven here because I think that that looks more authentic, and I think it looks like she's still in commission, you know? She's still working. So I like that. I think that that's fun, you know? So let me do a few more things. What I want to do is try to get my hook put back together here. I want to get everything done on the bottom, at least today, so I can set it into my case, my table, while I'm working on everything on the top. Okay, so I got my other camera back here so we can be steady again. I'm going to go ahead and get my little oil impeller everything put back in. I have cleaned out the lines the best I could at this point. I've blown a lot of stuff, air, oil, things through it. So I know that it goes all the way through because it makes a really crazy whistling noise when I do it. But that's about the best I can do right now. I need to deal with this shaft over here now because there is an oil wick way down here at this side that I'm going to need to replace since I'm doing everything else. So what I'm going to do is pull out the pivot point here and down here at the end, and just like down on this side there is a little bracket here that I can unscrew, and down here, there's another little nut and bolt, and if I undo those, I should be able to pull this whole shaft out, clean it, clean all of this, and then replace that wick down there. Okay, let me show you what's going on here. I cannot get this off, and it's too much of a bizarre position to get my wrench in there. I have no way to get a lot of leverage with all of this. If I was really going to take this off, I should have taken it off with all of this, you know, around here off, but I can't do it. It's just not happening. So since I kind of have an idea of how all of this oil wick thing here is working, what I have done is I just kind of cleaned out the hole on this shaft where this wick is going to be, you know, connected to. Now up here, this part is my little issue. So I unscrewed, hang on, let me turn it back down here. There's a screw right here, okay? I've loosened that enough that I can turn this whole end piece to reach underneath, okay? I don't like straining any of these things, I really don't. But down here, there's another one of these little brackets with a piece of wick on it and a tiny screw. So, put my screw on a magnet so I don't lose it. I'm going to go ahead, you know, replace this little wick, clean this little bracket, put it back on, clean this up, flip it back down to where it's supposed to be, and reconnect it, and I think I'm going to call that good. I wanted to make sure when I put it back together that this fork was centered over the little part that it's supposed to be centered over. I do have the new wick on here. I need to get, there's a bar that a bracket that went across here and secured the hook so it stayed in one position, and so I need to get this back in, get it timed and everything. And I was just looking at my instruction book, and it said that when you have, you know, this off, it's a good idea to clean the oil filter without disturbing the wick inside. So apparently there's an oil filter in here and there's a wick inside of there I'm not going to be able to get to, and I'm sure that oil filter is really disgusting. I just don't know how to get to it. So I'm hoping that the new oil that's going to be flushed through will help clean it out, and you know, we're just going to hope for the best there. Now it does say, looking at the diagram here, this little part that's coming out here, just below this hole, there's a little hex shaped part that they have a tiny little wrench that should go on that, and that is the oil flow regulator. So apparently if you need to adjust the amount of oil that comes through, that's the place. To me, this looks threaded, and I'm wondering if I could maybe just unscrew the entire little piece, flush out what's in there, and then screw it back in. But I'm not sure if I'm that adventuresome right now. All right, so, but looking at this, I can't get this timed until I have a needle in, and I can't put a needle in until I get the whole front part done. So I think what I'm going to do is just tuck these oil wicks in where they need to go very securely. I'm probably going to have them doubled or something in there just so that they are going to hold in really, really well. Shove a lot of the wick in there, trim off the excess, you know, load the oil wick in, do everything I can so it's going to want to stay very securely in here, and it's far enough that the wick is touching that really thin channel that goes like that, okay? Load that up, and then I'm going to have to set my piece, my little bracket piece here. Okay, so at this point, I do have it so that my feed dogs are traveling in the right slot, centered as I can get them. I've got everything down below. It was a little bit of a puzzle and nerve-wracking and everything to get everything lined up. I had to do a lot of adjustments, and I'm still going to probably have to come back. Oopsie, just lost my tripod. Come back and do some fine-tuning in a little bit, but I think I'm okay for now. I got my feed dogs on just so I could get it lined up with my plate up here. And I have my gasket for my top part up here soaking in water because I went to go ahead and put that on, but it was too small. So it is 100% cork, so I'm hoping that by soaking it in water for a little bit, it's going to get bigger. You can see when I was trying to force it on, it cracked, but I'm hoping I can make that go. Otherwise, I'll have to get another one, but I'm thinking I can make that work, you know, with a little adhesive right there where that split is. So I'm going to call this good, walk away for a little bit, get some other things done inside, and I'll see you later.